Life at the Naval Academy is intense, stressful, and yes, even a little crazy at times. Here's your chance to get an insider's perspective on life at the Naval Academy. Please welcome Daniel Suhr.
Los Gatos Toastmasters, Mr. Toastmaster, thank you. I'm here today. I'm going to tell you about 3 people that I encountered at the Naval Academy. Tell you a little story about each of them. The first person that I met there, was on I-Day, which is induction day. For those of you that don't know, there's about 1,200 of us. We're all sworn in, and there was this officer there. At the start, he's maybe 45. He's very experienced, and he says, looking out at all of us, he goes, "This is one of the most academically accomplished and qualified classes in the history of the Naval Academy. You're all going to do so well here." So I'm thinking, great, this is going to be a piece of cake. Later that night, I meet the first person, Bobby Zubek. What they do that night is they line us all up along a wall, and then they tell us to turn around. We do an about face. So I turn around like this, and I'm facing this wall, and I can hear these people walking in the room behind me. And then behind me, I hear this voice. I hear, "Mr. Suhr, you are one of the least qualified people to ever come to the Naval Academy, and you're going to be kicked out by the end of the summer." And I'm thinking, uh-oh, what just happened? 4 hours ago, I was hot stuff. And so then we turn back around, and Mr. Zubek, he goes, "Mr. Suhr, tell me what company you're in." I go, "Hotel, sir." He goes, "Wrong, you're in Hotel 16. So he goes, "Front-leaning rest," which is this. Demonstrate here. We get down like this, and as you can tell, this is not a restful position. Anyway, and he goes down, up, and then he does this. He goes down, and then he starts talking to the person next to me, Mr. Turpin. And then about a minute later, he goes up like that. So I'm pretty beat by this, and that continued the entire summer. That type of behavior. And he was talking to the person next to me, Adam Turpin. That's person number 2. Adam Turpin was from Kentucky. He's a good guy, my first Kentuckian that I would say I knew. And he's a happy guy. And he struggled academically. We were the same major. And by the end of the first semester, he'd had a few D's. By the end of the plebe year, he failed a class. And he comes in though, he was always happy. He comes in the room, he goes, Daniel, I got this great news." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "I'm a part of the square root club." I'm like, "What's that?" He goes, "My GPA is so low, the square root of it is higher than my GPA. I think about that, I'm like, "Wait, that means you're less than 1. He goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "That's not good news. Adam, what are you talking about?" He goes, "Wait till you hear the bad news." I'm like, "What's that?" He goes, "I'm kicked out." I'm like, "Why are you laughing, man?" He goes, "I'm just a happy guy." So he tells me this, and as it turns out, when you get kicked out for academic reasons, you can appeal it. So he goes in front of the board, and there's some officers, there's the dean of academics, his advisor, and square in the middle is the superintendent. The superintendent's about 65 years old. He's been through a lot of stuff. He's a 3-star admiral, and he looks at Adam and he goes, "Mr. Turpin, why should I keep you at the Naval Academy?" And Adam thinks, and he goes, "It's been a really tough year. I didn't come from a great high school. I've worked really hard here." And he goes, "I'd really like to keep staying. I'd like to stay here and continue on." And he thinks about it, and he looks at him and he goes, "All right, we'll keep you for 1 more year." And he gives him the 2 thumbs up. And we're really happy. And so we celebrated that night. We drank underage a little bit. I can talk about that now. I couldn't then. And then the superintendent is the 3rd person. And this is a great guy. He was very friendly with us. He was at the end of his career, and he was, at the time, he was the oldest person in the Navy, and people who were in the military know that age and rank count for a lot. So basically nobody could tell him otherwise if you wanted to do something. So fast forward now to my junior year, Roger Staubach is coming to talk at the Naval Academy. Roger Staubach is a legend at the Naval Academy. For those of you who don't know, he played football, he won the Heisman Trophy in 1963. He was the last quarterback to beat Notre Dame. He did that in '63. Navy then lost for 40 years in a row, every year, to Notre Dame's football team. So he comes there and he gives us this talk, and we don't really want to go. It's an hour and a half wasted of my time. We're walking to the auditorium. It's like everybody's slouching or whatever. It's snowing out because it's February. It's going to suck.
And at the end of the talk, somebody stands up and they say, you know, Mr. Staubach, you've done so many things. You've won Super Bowls, you've won the Heisman Trophy, but you've never canceled class at the Naval Academy. And everybody starts cheering. We're like, yeah, this is awesome. And that's true. He's never canceled class at the Naval Academy. That's a fact. And so he goes, well, that's true. I've done many things, and I'd like to give back to the Naval Academy. And so he goes, well, but it's not in my authority. He looks over at the superintendent, and he goes, well, what do you think, Sup? And the Sup is just sitting there, and he looks at Mr. Staubach for a minute, and then he goes, all right, let's do it. He gives that thumbs up again, and the place just erupted in pandemonium. I mean, this hadn't happened in at least 10 years at the Naval Academy, and people were just going nuts. And we're walking back to the dorms, and people were just happy. They're just skipping, they're like picking up snow and just throwing snowballs at each other. I mean, you couldn't believe it. I mean, that was like, you're rarely happy at the Naval Academy. But that night, I was happy. And it was because of the Sup, my friend Adam Turpin, and not really because of Bobby Zubek, the detailer, but because of the other two. Mr. Toastmaster.
We'll take a minute for you to write your impressions and thoughts to give to Daniel on one of the blue pieces of paper.